CrossToday.com, Victoria officers arrested a man after they found 140 pounds of marijuana in his vehicle.
The latest on the arrest of a man accused of trying to break into his girlfriend's apartment.
And authorities are investigating a dumpster fire outside Kent Paxton's office.
Well, some heat and humidity in the Crossroads area. One leftover thunderstorm actually got close to us, but that is falling apart. We'll take a look at your Memorial Weekend forecast coming up.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has revealed its 2023 hurricane prediction. We'll take a look. You're watching 25 News Now at 5. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us. I'm James Munoz.
And I'm Karina Garcia.
On Monday at 2:15 p.m., Victoria officers stopped a white 2016 Mercedes in the 5400 block of Houston Highway. It was a traffic violation stop. Officers say they smelled marijuana, so they searched the vehicle. Officers found about 140 pounds of marijuana and a large amount of money, according to authorities. Officers arrested 39-year-old Michael Sanabria. He's charged with money laundering and possession of marijuana. Earlier this week, Victoria police arrested this man, 21-year-old Jordan Paul Martinez. He's accused of trying to break into his girlfriend's apartment. He was charged with assault by contact and burglary of a habitation with intent to commit assault. Those charges violated his probation on a charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon from 2019.
Today in Hallettsville, during a traffic stop in the 800 block of East 4th Street, police arrested 19-year-old Lyric Sarah Jones of Richmond. Jones is accused of having marijuana, drug paraphernalia, and a 9mm handgun. She faces drug and weapon charges. Students at Edna walked the stage Friday, May 19th with "Once a Cowboy, Always a Cowboy" on their minds. One student says she was not allowed to walk with her classmates because her hair was colored bright blue. Leticia Kelly says the decision broke her heart.
They tore this chance away from me. And this was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I can never get that moment back. And I was crying so much when I got home.
Taylor says she was told she could walk the stage by the superintendent. She says other students walk the stage with other hair colors like pink. We spoke with the superintendent, Robert O'Connor, about the graduation issue. He had this to say. He said it didn't have anything to do with cutting her hair or having a weave. It had to do with the fact that not only did she weave in blue, but she also colored her whole head blue. Leticia Taylor says other students had colored hair but were able to walk the stage. Superintendent O'Connor denies this claim. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation is looking into an officer-involved shooting involving a young boy last week. The shooting happened at a home in Indianola where officers responded to a domestic disturbance. The boy's mother says an officer came into her home with his gun drawn and shot the 11-year-old as he entered the living room. The boy had to deal with a collapsed lung, fractured ribs. He's now recovering at home. The case heads to the Attorney General's office.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration issued its hurricane season predictions today. Forecasters are predicting 12 to 17 named storms, with 5 to 9 possibly becoming hurricanes. 4 could become Category 3 or stronger. El Nino is causing unpredictability this year. It's only beginning to develop, and its influence on storms is unknown. Sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean are already at or near record high levels. The Atlantic hurricane season officially starts next Thursday. Let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Mac Bettis. Mac, what did you think about that prediction?
It was very interesting to me, and frankly, I thought it was not a powerful forecast. They basically went neutral and tried to play in the middle. The big question, and we'll talk about it in a minute, is will the shear of the winds over the Atlantic overpower the heat of the Atlantic? And I am thinking the opposite, and that's the sum of my studying and my career, and so we'll talk about that coming up. A few showers actually left over from last night get very close to San Antonio, and they're falling apart at this hour, but it'll give us more humidity to deal with over the weekend. We'll have more on your weather coming up in just a moment.
Mac, thank you. The Austin Fire Department is investigating a dumpster fire outside the Texas Attorney General's office. Fire crews responded to a call Wednesday evening that a dumpster was on fire. A 42-year-old woman was arrested today. Investigators say she threw a lit cigarette into the dumpster, but determined setting the fire was not intentional. This comes amid the corruption investigation into Attorney General Ken Paxton. Now, a House panel has revealed details of an investigation against Ken Paxton.
A group of prosecutors say he may have broken the law. He could face censure, impeachment, or even criminal charges.
It's been one of the most dramatic 24-hour periods in the Texas legislature. What began with Republican Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton calling for House Speaker Dade Phelan's resignation culminated in a House panel laying out a case against Paxton, alleging years of misconduct, possibly felony criminal penalties, and alleged lies Paxton has told to officials since.
Page 39, false. That's false. Page 34, false. Do you want me to keep going?
Please. Wednesday morning, the House Investigative Committee unveiled what had been a months-long investigation of misconduct, much of which stems from his relationship with Austin real estate developer Nate Paul, who spent time in jail over a fraud case.
So is it fair to say the OAG's office was effectively hijacked for an investigation by Nate Paul through the Attorney General Ken Paxton?
That would be my opinion.
The panel alleges Paxton committed acts of financial fraud, mishandled government records, and patently ignored law enforcement protocol. The investigation began with a probe into his request to use taxpayer funds to pay a $3 million settlement with former staffers who were fired after alerting law enforcement to possible crimes committed by the Attorney General. From there, it evolved into what could be a legal battle for Paxton.
Millions of dollars have been asking taxpayer dollars to remedy what has alleged to be some wrongs by various people. So that's something that we have to grapple with.
Paxton has spent the last day seeking to discredit the attorneys behind the investigation, the committee, and House Speaker Dade Phelan himself, whom he publicly called on to resign minutes before details of the investigation were made public.
This is unprecedented for what they're doing. I have no idea why they've chosen to do this.
The House committee has the authority to censure or impeach Paxton or any other state official, which could result in a dramatic finish to the legislative session.
Paxton says every allegation is easily disproved, and he looks forward to continuing his fight for conservative Texas values.
And this brings us to your viewer poll. Scan that QR code on your screen to vote now. The question is, if Paxton was on the ballot, how would you vote, for or against? We want to hear from you. Come to crossroadstoday.com/vote to take part, and we will have an update on 25 News Now at 6. A federal judge sentenced the Oath Keepers founder to 18 years in prison today. 58-year-old Stuart Rhodes was originally convicted on seditious conspiracy charges in November. He's the first person to be sentenced on that charge in more than a decade. The judge blamed Rhodes for bringing his militia to Washington, D.C. and compared it to domestic terrorism. The sentence is a win for the Justice Department, even though its prosecutors didn't get the 25-year sentence they originally asked for. Today marks 3 years since George Floyd's death, the May 25th, 2020 killing of the 46-year-old by Minneapolis police officers sparked protests throughout the country. President Biden released a statement Thursday to recognize the anniversary of Floyd's death. He says it exposed what Black and brown communities have known and experienced for years. All 4 of the officers who took part in the fatal death of Floyd were convicted on both state and federal charges. The officers who kneeled on Floyd's neck was sentenced to more than 22 years.
A trial date was set for former Donald Trump advisor Steve Bannon's fundraising fraud case. He was in New York court today. Bannon was charged last year with defrauding donors in a border wall scheme along with the entity We Build the Wall. He pleaded not guilty. His trial date is set to begin May 27th next year. Last month, 2 Bannon associates were sentenced to more than 7 years in prison collectively in connection with the scheme. Join us Monday, June 5th for Storm Prep 2023 at 6:30 p.m. The show airs right here on KAVU TV. You can also watch it on Crossroads Today Plus, viewit.com, and on our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. We hope you'll subscribe and watch. Stay with us. Straight ahead on 25 News Now at 5. 3 people were killed in a shooting and stabbing attack in Japan.
Also ahead, the Florida governor officially announced his presidential campaign, sparking protests by some groups. people are dead, including 2 police officers, in a shooting and stabbing attack in Japan. A 4th victim was hurt. It happened Thursday afternoon in a special ward in Tokyo. Residents were urged to stay indoors. Police say the gunman shot at officers as they responded to a call about a man stabbing a woman. The Florida governor officially launched his presidential campaign Wednesday.
Demonstrators from different sides of the political spectrum now voicing their opinions, some claiming he's too conservative.
DeSantis cannot govern because he's banning books in school. DeSantis cannot govern because he's banning books in school.
The news of the DeSantis announcement brought a group of well over 100 marching down Brickell to the Four Seasons Hotel in the hours before his anticipated talk with Elon Musk. And the last thing they say they want to see is a DeSantis presidency.
And we don't get it! Shut it down!
What we're fighting here in Florida is Ron DeSantis' vision for America in 2024. We've seen mass repeal of human rights from LGBTQ, queer children, abortion restrictions, anti-immigrant legislation, there's no affordable housing. He's not tackling the issues that real Floridians face.
The governor has held a supermajority in the Florida legislature and has been able to pass the Parental Rights in Education bill, otherwise known by critics as Don't Say Gay, which led to a public battle with Disney over the company's opposition to that law. He's also backed a 6-week abortion ban and battled what he called a woke agenda.
It has cost Floridians way too much. Our property insurance costs are going up, utility rates are rising, folks can't afford their homes. He has stripped away the use of vote by mail boxes and the wide accessibility that was provided before.
Reservations echoed in the crowd that showed up Wednesday.
I'm here because DeSantis has created really terrible laws for teachers. He's made it difficult for us to do our jobs, and he's basically vandalizing teachers.
He's banning abortion. He's banning books.
The group marched past an equally vocal Blacks for Trump group, the profanity flying from both sides. That's why we've cut the audio. And dueling, rolling billboards, one for Donald Trump, but both against the governor, circled past the hotel repeatedly.
We're here to make a statement.
DeSantis joins a crowded field of Republicans running for president, including Donald Trump, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, and Senator Tim Scott. After a month of fighting in Sudan, more than 1 million people have had to leave their homes. The United Nations says most of those people are displaced internally, while more than 330,000 have left the country. Egypt received the most with more than 150,000 people. Chad follows with 90,000. The U.S. is giving more than $100 million to support the people displaced by the war across Sudan and in neighboring countries. Memorial Day weekend marks the unofficial start of summer, a time many families spend at the pool or the beach.
However, drowning is a leading cause of death for children in the U.S.
It can happen in seconds. When a person's drowning, they're silent.
Every year, I wait for the phone call that we're going to have a drowning victim.
Pediatric emergency physician Dr. Sarah Lazarus has seen firsthand the dangers of water. She says many times child drownings happen while parents are at a party or gathering.
They think that someone else is going to be watching their child, and they lose eyes on them for a moment, and then the next thing they know, they're floating at the top of the water, or they see them on the side not breathing.
In the U.S., there are an estimated 4,000 fatal unintentional drownings every year. Anyone can drown, but children are at highest risk. It's the leading cause of death in kids ages 1 to 4, and the second leading cause of unintentional death in kids ages 5 to 14. But drownings are preventable. Keep kids younger than 6 within arm's reach around water. For older kids who can confidently swim 2 laps of a pool, make sure you keep an eye on them.
Because you're going to be more protective of your child than anyone else, it's really important that you realize you need to be aware of them. And you can't really trust on lifeguards or anyone else at a party to keep eyes on them because there's distractions everywhere.
For Health Minute, I'm Andy Gaither.
Today, the Supreme Court has cut back on the EPA's ability to regulate wetlands under the Clean Water Act. The move rolls back federal safeguards in a long-running dispute between the government and a couple who owns property in Idaho. The decision is a victory for the couple who purchased a vacant lot near Idaho's Priest Lake. The decision continues a trend in which the conservative-leaning court has narrowed the reach of environmental regulations.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's hot, it's humid, but then again, it's summertime. We'll be talking about your weekend forecast and taking a look at what's happening or predicted to happen in the tropics. All that in just a moment. Stay tuned. Oh, welcome back, everybody. It is May the 25th, an important day for everyone because it's when the National Hurricane Center puts out their forecast for the season. Now, I have a lot to talk about. I just have to be very short in this because I don't get that much time. But first of all, let's remember we're going to an El Nino, and what is that? That is the warm phase of the Pacific Ocean. So all of these waters are going to warm up. I've got a fly in the studio here, or is it just me? Anyway, what happens during this event is that the jet stream drops further south, and when it rolls over a very moist and warm Pacific Ocean, it picks up a lot of moisture. So we're expecting quite a bit of rain throughout much of the Southwest. Remember, we've been in a drought for 20 years. Well, now I believe it's going to be very active. The problem is when it goes into the Atlantic, the upper winds are predicted to have a shear. In other words, the hurricane's going this way, the shear is going that way, and it cuts it off. And that's why a lot of people say it's going to be a quiet season. Well, here's what the Hurricane Center came out with today, and this is probably the most important part here. They said that only 12 to 17 storms are going to be named, that only 3 to 6 hurricanes are going to happen, and that we're only going to have 1 to 3 major hurricanes. That's above a Category 3. Personally, with all due respect to the National Hurricane Center, because there are a lot of smart guys, I think that's crazy. With the amount of heat that's in the Atlantic Ocean, to not consider that is just very interesting. Arlene, Brett, Cindy, and Don, those are the first names of the storms for the season, and I just wanted you to see this. The Colorado State came out with 13, 7, and 3, right? Well, the Hurricane Center today came out with 15, 7, and 3. And the season average is 14, 6, and 2. So they're basically saying, oh, we're just going to be an average season. All right. I've been doing this a long time. I'm not a genius, but I have an opinion. And in my forecast, we're going to have 22 named storms, 14 hurricanes, and 8 majors. Okay. Let's see what happens. Let's play the game. We're going to total them up right here. And we're going to know by the end of the season who's closer to what happens this season. And I don't say this out of fun. I mean, this is just scientific fact, observing what we have in the Atlantic, and to not count that into the equation of how warm the Atlantic Ocean is. I'm sitting here, I'm baffled. I am baffled. I've been called worse, but today I'm baffled. Anyway, 86 out there, very light winds, a lot of heat and humidity. In the afternoon, we started picking up some cloud cover, and then I looked up to the north and said, what is that? This was a thunderstorm complex that actually developed in the Panhandle last night, rolled all day south, 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 got to San Antonio and began to fall apart. But so we don't expect any rain out of that, but we do expect it to add to the humidity that we're going to be dealing with. Of course, we're all going to be getting ready for a Memorial holiday weekend, and so all I have to do is watch out here. You will see storms fire out there every afternoon. If you're driving anywhere north, just know that in the late afternoon there's going to be some storms in the west, and whether or not they travel toward you is the big question mark. So let's take a quick look at your forecast. It's pretty traditional for us. Here's Port Lavaca for tomorrow, your planner getting up to about 87 for your Friday, and then a look at the weekend. We're looking generally on the sunny, warm, and humid side, and on Memorial Day, a slight chance of a rain shower, and Tuesday and Wednesday of next week as well. But I think all in all, we're going to be pretty good for the weekend. All right, that is your 7-day forecast. Reminding everybody we've got a QR code. Scan that with your phone and put crossroadstoday.com on your cell phone, and we'll be able to get a hold of you. We'll toss it back to James and Karina.
All right, Mac, thank you so much. Coming up next on 25 News Now at 5, we'll take a look at stocks. Plus, Google has removed a slavery simulator game from the App Store following a wave of criticism in Brazil.
Taking a look at your stocks, the Dow off 36 points, the S&P 500 up 36 points, and the Nasdaq gaining 213 points. Oil down $2.51, closing at $71.83 a barrel. Google has removed a game from its Play Store allowing users to simulate owning slaves. The app was launched in April and was downloaded on more than 1,000 times on people's devices before it was removed. Wednesday, users could either become a wealthy slave owner or achieve the removal of slavery. Google says it doesn't allow apps that promote violence or incite hate against individuals or groups based on race or ethnic origin. The developer said the simulator was created for entertainment purposes only and condemns slavery.
One of the three major rating agencies warns America's AAA credit is at risk due to the nation's debt limit. The rating agency Fitch has put the nation's credit on rating watch negative, which amounts to a warning it might downgrade the U.S. credit. The government reached the $31.4 trillion debt limit in January. Since then, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has resorted to extraordinary measures to keep paying the bills. She has warned the Treasury will likely run out of money to meet all of its obligations as soon as June 1, also known as the X date.
Stay with us. We'll take one last look at your forecast. Plus, President Biden announced a San Antonio native as his pick for chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff.
President Biden announced his pick for the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff today. He nominated General Charles Q. Brown, a San Antonian and graduate of Texas Tech. Go Tech. He says the general is a warrior who knows how to keep his cool when things get hard.
With General Brown as chairman, I know I'll be able to rely on his advice as a military strategist and as a leader of military innovation, dedicated to keeping our armed forces the best in the world, and they are the best in the history of the world, and that's a fact.
President Biden thanked Brown and his family, saying there was no one better suited or more qualified to take on the challenges ahead. President Biden is calling on Congress to confirm Brown with bipartisan support. Great that he came out of Military City, USA.
How about that?
Yeah.
Pretty insightful. It's been a good year for Texas. I mean, Fort Hood is now Fort Cavazos, and now we have San Antonio guy up there.
Yeah.
That's
Big
right.
military.
Good progress.
That's right. Well, Mac, let's circle back to your weather predictions real quick. So you're
Yes.
predicting 15 storms?
Yes, I, you know, who am I? I'm nobody, just a guy that's been watching and doing this for 40 years. I cannot believe that the Hurricane Service, Hurricane Center, went with so few numbers. The Atlantic is extremely warm right now, and I'm going to be showing you maps of sea surface temperatures over the course of time, but that little thing spinning around over there off the Carolinas, that could actually be something that spins up as a tropical system, but it's going to move northeast, so it's not in a potential to become a storm. But you know, it's just amazing to me that they didn't go with the amount of heat in the water. They're just going with the shear caused by El Nino. So, I mean, there's two little things, you know, which way do you bet?
Yeah.
And you know, and I will play the game. I will put my forecast down against theirs, and we will count the numbers, and at the end of the season, we're going to know who's closer. Because I don't throw those numbers out just for fun. I mean, you have to look at all of the factors that are, you know, weather is so global.
Right.
People say, why are you telling me the weather in North Carolina? I'm going, because it's a hurricane that could affect you. You know, all of these things are connected. So the good news is that it's the holiday weekend. Just remember, hot and humid, wear a hat, get plenty of fluids, get some sun, but don't get too much. And on Monday, Memorial Day, just honor those who didn't come back.
All right, Mac, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today.
That's right, and we hope to see you back here tonight for 25 News Now at 6. World News Tonight with David Muir is up next.